Well, it's June and I have not done a single wrap-up this year. I was gonna do a January wrap-up and then I didn't, and I was like, well, I'll do a quarter 1 wrap-up, and then I didn't. And then I was just gonna do a random wrap-up, and then I was pretty close to reading 50 books, so I was like, why don't I wait till I hit 50? That's a nice round number. And also, Bookborn chose my TBR again, just like I chose her TBR. If you're new here, every year, around the same time, it varies a little bit. I choose 4 books for Bookborn to read, Bookborn chooses 4 books for me to read, and then we talk about them on each other's channels. So the books that she picked for me to read, which we'll get to, we're going to talk about on her channel, and the books that I picked for her to read, we're going to talk about on my channel. So since they're not listed, they're not going to be in this wrap-up. The books that I picked for her to read, if you want to like quickly read through them as well, before we talk about them, I don't know exactly when that will be yet. She has not finished the books yet, I don't think, at least when I'm recording this. So the books that I picked for her, again, if you want to read along or be prepared, I picked for her to read Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. If you're not familiar with Bookborn's channel, you know that that was a risky choice on my part. Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, the Book of Elsewhere by Keanu Reeves and China Miéville, and what was the 4th book that I chose? Oh my god, I don't remember. Slewfoot. Slewfoot by Brahm, which was the Feminine Rage pick, which you also, if you're new here, one of our books every year for each other is always what we call the Feminine Rage pick. We can interpret that really however we want. So yeah, those are the 4, and we're going to talk about them on this channel when she's done. The 4 that she picked for me, we'll get to those. Goodreads is open and ready to tell me what I read. If I have it physically, I will try to remember to hold it up. Otherwise, images it is. I started out the year by reading Belladonna by Adeline Grace. It's a YA book that started out really strong and then kind of fumbled the landing. I own all 3, probably read the others at some point. Basically, I wanted to start out the year with something that wouldn't demand very much of me. I'd been like kind of speeding through some reading goals in the holidays and everything, and thinking about everything that I needed to do and everything I had committed to doing. So I picked this up because it looked like it would be fun, escapist, whatever. And it's a mystery. So the main character, she cannot die, but she like sees death. And like the way that she can't die is different from how I've ever seen that portrayed before. She like does die, or she like kind of like is near death, sort of in like a limbo, because she'll ingest poison and that puts her in like a limbo state, which is when she'll actually like see like death personified and this sort of thing. So it's called Belladonna because she'll like put belladonna berries in her pockets, so she can kind of like use it whenever she wants, because there's like other benefits associated, like other things she can do when she's like in like a death state, but she can't die. So it starts out pretty strong with her, I guess, origin story, I guess you could say. And then the rest of it is sort of, she gets taken to this fancy house and there's something mysterious afoot. And because she's deathless and also has other powers associated with that, then she's kind of in a unique position to figure out what's going on. And this is where it kind of fell apart because she's really, really stupid. And then also the conclusion that is ultimately the answer for some of what's going on is actually a very stupid answer for what's going on. So it made me feel dumb for expecting a better answer, because like she starts to suspect what ultimately the answer ends up being. And I was like, well, it can't be that because that's dumb as hell. And then it is that. And I was like, it's still dumb as hell, but okay, I guess it's the book that's dumb, not you, or both, I don't know. But you know, at the very end, I think it's in the epilogue, we get like a new problem, a new cliffhanger, and I was like, it'd probably be like a distracting, entertaining enough time if I ever felt like picking it up. Again, I own all 3. The covers are very pretty. So yeah. I think I gave it like 3 stars. Originally, when I first started it, the death stuff and her origin and everything was like a very cool concept. So I was like, ooh, this is like 4 stars? But then it was very dumb at the end. So I was like, okay, 3. Next I read the Book of 3 by Lloyd Alexander. It's very shiny. I did a read along with my patrons. So let me just gather them up because we read them 1 a month. And I don't really have too many separate things to say about them. This is a reread. I've read the Chronicles of Prydain before. So we read the Book of 3. This is Taran Wanderer, but that's not next. Oh god, these piles are everywhere. The Black Cauldron. This was maybe a bad idea to do them all at once. We've gone too far. The Castle of Lear. That's, oh, I think the last one's still on my bookshelf. This is now not in order. Good lord. We have the Book of Three, the Black Cauldron, the Castle of Lear, then Taran Wanderer, and then the last book, which is still on my shelf somewhere, is The High King. That's the Chronicles of Prydain. You've probably heard of the Black Cauldron because the Disney movie, that's an adaptation of kind of the whole, I wouldn't really say that all of the Chronicles of Prydain, but it's not an adaptation of just the Black Cauldron. It's an adaptation of kind of like bits and pieces of the whole series, and they called the movie The Black Cauldron because it's kind of the jazziest title. Book of Three doesn't sound as jazzy as The Black Cauldron. I love the Disney movie. I always have. And I read these as an adult, not as a kid. I think I would have liked them as a kid. I recommend these to people who enjoy The Hobbit or just who enjoy kind of like more like comfy, traditional fairy tale fantasy storytelling. They're heavily inspired by Welsh folklore, which I think all the books have like little notes from Lloyd Alexander about that. And they just feel very like cozy and familiar while still being packed to the brim with really great character work and a compelling story and charming characters, sort of funny moments, banter. It's got like whimsy and humor in it. They just kind of have it all. They're not super complex. They're kids' books, but they're kids' books in the way that The Hobbit is a kid's book. So adults could certainly enjoy them as well. And there's a lot of things in them that you probably appreciate more as an adult, which is, I think, the mark of really good children's literature, is that it isn't talking down to children. I read a lot of Lloyd Alexander books when I was a kid, but never these. So anyway, if you've never read them, I recommend them. And if you have kids, I mean, they can get a little bit dark. So for like older kids, I guess, maybe check them out. See, I mean, you know best. But I think they're really good. And I think they're definitely underhyped. I don't really see people talking about them. I mean, the Disney movie also was really underhyped. Anyway, that's my pitch over for the Chronicles of Prydain. But I really love them, and I highly recommend them. Moving on. Then I read Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid, which is part of my 2025 priorities blog. So I'm not really going to talk about it now, how I feel about it, but just like last year, I picked 12 books to make my priorities for the year and then vlog reading them. So by the end of the year, I'll have a vlog out where I was reading them. That was one of them, and it's like in my pile of books that are for that. So anyway, that. After that, I read Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder, which I forgot that I read that. Should tell you something. Although this is the beginning of the year. I had heard of Poison Study, not when it came out, I don't think, but like it's been around for at least a decade, I think. It's one of those sort of Shadow and Bone era YA fantasy books. I think it was like around, it's semi-contemporaneous with that, so it's older. And I'd always had heard good things about it. And so I got it from the library. I think I just made that my commute book because it would demand very little of me. And it was pretty good. I think if I had read it 10 years ago, I would have really loved it. Now, it's a bit dated in some of how it's handling its characters and the romance in it especially. It's decently unique, and the premise is pretty good. The heroine isn't nearly as stupid as the heroine in Belladonna. So, I mean, if you've been curious about it, so if you don't know what it's about, Poison Study, she, to escape execution, agrees to be the, like, food taster for the king or king-like person. I forget if it's actually a king or not, but you know, someone like some such person. So a lot of the book is dedicated to her kind of learning to identify poisons in the beginning, because you can't, to be a poison tester or whatever here, they want you to be more than just like, eat it, oh, they didn't drop dead, okay, it's safe. They want ideally for her to be able to recognize specifically what it is and not die, and to be able to tell them like what poison this is, identify it by taste, smell, etc. So to be kind of more of an expert. And then, yeah, there's some like other world building stuff to do with like why she was up for execution in the first place, like her backstory and the person that's training her in poisons. It's pretty interesting. It's decent. I haven't really read anything quite like that before. So yeah, I might read the others. It didn't leave me really like desperate to read more, but it was fine. So I guess next time I feel like reading something that doesn't demand very much of me, I might consider it. Next, I read With Blades and Bodice Rippers. This was my pick. Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. This is an Australian classic. The live show was on my channel. We all dressed up as, well, we could dress up either as Edwardians or as girls at a boarding school. I think we were split down the middle. 2 of us dressed Edwardian and 2 of us dressed as schoolgirls. But anyway, if you've never heard of it, it's about this Australian girls' boarding school in the Edwardian era. And the girls go out to the Hanging Rock, which is a real place in Australia. It's sort of like a naturally occurring site that people do visit. And some of the girls go missing when they're there. And the rest of the book is about the school and everyone who kind of like was connected with the school and the girls dealing with the aftermath of them going missing and trying to figure out what happened to them. Mara and I really liked it. Bethany and Amanda not so much. There is a very good adaptation. It's not an especially loyal adaptation, but there is a very good adaptation of this on, I want to say it's on Prime, but it's like a TV miniseries, and it stars Natalie Dormer and Samara Weaving. So I would recommend it. I would recommend both. I really liked the book. It's definitely not going to be for everybody. And the show is, I think it's very well done. It has a very different tone, and it explores some things that are not in the text, kind of like, not so much change. It does change some things, but more so what it does is expands on things. It's a pretty short book. So like Mrs. Appleyard is the person who owns and runs the school. She is an older and stouter woman in the book. She's played by Natalie Dormer in the show. So that's a pretty big departure. But then we don't really know much about Mrs. Appleyard in the book. Not much. You could sort of surmise based on how she's depicted things about her, but there's never like a backstory or a flashback or something given for her. So the show imagines a backstory for her, which I think it does pretty well. I liked it. They didn't. Take that information and do what you will with it. Next I read The Rachel Incident by Carolyn O'Donoghue, because I think I saw it being, well, I really liked the cover, and I think I saw it being pitched as sort of like keeping company with Sally Rooney type books, and how dare. I love Sally Rooney, as I've said multiple times on this channel. This was awful. I really hated this. And I mean, I do get the comparison. It feels, I think I said in my review on Goodreads, I was like, is this what it feels like to read a Sally Rooney book for all the people that hate Sally Rooney? Because like, I understand, it's sort of like how when you watch Rings of Power, and you can see how this is Lord of the Rings, and you can see how a very surface level glance at both, you'd be like, oh, these are same. But they are not same in pretty like fundamental ways, like really important ways. And so Rings of Power is like, oh no, this is like if Lord of the Rings was terrible. So the Rachel Incident is like if a Sally Rooney book was terrible. So if you already don't like Sally Rooney, then I for sure recommend you not read this. But if you like Sally Rooney, people are comping it to her, so I disagree. Again, do with that what you will. Next, I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, because I joined the read-along on Erin's channel, Booked and Busy. We did a Middle-earth-along where we read The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. We did not read the Silmarillion, at least not yet. That was a pretty fun time. I had just reread these books at the end of last year after Rings of Power, so it was... I had very recently read them, but I was happy to read them again, and it was very fun talking to Erin and some of the other folks who had never ever read them before. Some of us had read them before. Myself and Gavin had read them before multiple times, big fans. Erin had never read them or seen the movies, so it's kind of amazing to meet a person who's a fan of fantasy who has just no knowledge of how this is gonna go. Wow, what a time. It's not every day you find that. So anyway, I had a great time. I guess we'll say them now also at the same time. We also read obviously The Two Towers, and I don't know, they're all down here somewhere. Anyway, so the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit, that's 4 books. So we'll skip those when we get to them. We read one a month, so Hobbit was January, Fellowship February, etc. And all the live shows are still on her channel. And then I read A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. And after reading this, I was like, no, for real this time. For real, I'm not reading her books anymore. Because I keep doing that. I keep reading her books and not liking them. And then a new one will come out and I'm like, that sounds good. And I really like the cover. Maybe this time. And then it's worse. And then I read the next one and it's even worse. And this one was so bad that I think I'm finally cured of curiosity. So basically, I like Adrienne Young as a person. I follow her on social media. She seems like a very chill person. I like her vibe. I went to a book signing of hers when her very first book came out, that Viking one, and that remains the best book of hers that I've read. It's all been really downhill from there. So she's just a very chill, down-to-earth person. I like the kind of content that she posts. Yeah, so I like her, and I for that reason kind of want to support her and want to like what she does. And then the concepts of her books I always really like. When she gives the pitch for it, or when I read the blurb for it, or whatever, where I see the marketing for it, they always sound like concepts that would really, really appeal to me. And the covers, whoever's doing that for her is 10 out of 10, knocking it out of the park. And then the one that from the year before, was it the something of June Farrow? It was really bad. And I was kind of like, I should not, no more. I've learned my lesson, no more. But then Sea of Unspoken Things. I heard the pitch for it, and she has said before, I think, that she has a twin brother that she's really close with. Or I don't know if she said she's really close with, but she has a twin brother. And she said that this book was like really close to her heart because it was heavily inspired by her relationship with her brother. And I was like, oh, because like I have a brother and I am very close with my brother. My brother is one of my best friends. And so I'm often drawn to stories that feature prominently a brother-sister relationship, although sometimes I'm very let down by that because it'll be bad or creepy or whatever. But I really like stories like that just because, you know, that is close to my heart. So I was like, oh, like she, like me, has this like this relationship with her brother, and that if that's the source of inspiration, like I'm gonna really identify with that probably, or feel some kind of way about it. I did feel some kind of way about it. When I finished that book, I was like, if I wrote this book and told my brother that he was the inspiration for it, my brother would be like, literally, what the fuck? And he would be right. I was like, what? So yeah. No more. No more. I don't know what she has coming out next. I think she's got like a bunch coming out, but I'm not reading anymore. Then let's do these together as well. We're gonna get through this in no time when I keep lumping them together like this. My patrons and I like to read Gene Wolfe books together. So we read, it's not like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, that we read Book of the New Sun together. And then after that, a few months, however long later, we together read The Wizard Knight. And then now most recently, we spent 3 months reading the Latro in the Mist. So Latro in the Mist, this bind up, which is all tabbed up because I actually tabbed a book for once in my life. This bind up contains Soldier in the Mist and Soldier of Arret. And then there is, just like with Book of the New Sun, a years and years after the fact additional installment called Soldier of Sidon, which I have somewhere. I don't know where. So yeah, we read those together and chatted about them. It's Gene Wolfe, so it is opaque and hard to pin down and much to discuss and debate as always. This is historical fiction, which is not really the thing. I mean, I guess Wizard Knight is not historical fiction. What am I saying? So that's new. I've never read any historical fiction by Gene Wolfe before. The beginning of this, I think for the most part, we kind of all felt this way, that the first installment, Soldier of the Mist, was our favorite. And I personally really had a really good time reading Soldier in the Mist. And then Soldier of Arret, less so. And then Soldier of Sidon, I was like, I don't know why this exists. So it definitely like went downhill. But Soldier of the Mist, I did find compelling and immersive and amusing and fun to pick apart. And if you like look at my tabs, they like decline over time. So like the part of this that is Soldier in the Mist, it has lots of tabs in it. Well, lots for me because I don't tab anything ever. And then Soldier of Arret doesn't really have almost any tabs. And I definitely did not tab Soldier of Sidon. So I'm glad I read it, but I would be curious kind of to, I mean, he's passed away, but to ask Gene Wolfe, I have some questions about, not so much about the material itself, but sort of like what he was trying to accomplish with this is the question I would ask. And then one of my patron, oh God, where is it? We read Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman, which has been on my TBR forever. So I'm glad it finally won. And I did really enjoy this. This is not going to be for everybody. This is quite dark. This is like historical fantasy horror, I guess, is how it would be described. I think, yeah, this would definitely not work for everyone, partly because of how dark it is. And it's quite viscerally dark, by which I mean, like, it's gross. Like, there's some gross details that are just, I mean, it's like medieval, like, plague times. So there's just, like, death. And it's a gross time. Like, when you're reading it, like, it's not pleasant because it really doesn't hold back on those aspects of it. Now, there's also like trigger warnings abound in terms of just like there's like violence of every kind, essay included. There's some interesting things done with like Christianity, this being medieval times and plague times, whatever. To me personally, my reading of this, I felt like, so the line for me oftentimes with stuff like that is this here to no other purpose than to just be here and be shocking and be gross? Or does this serve a narrative purpose where it's absolutely necessary and then there's like a spectrum in between of like, well, maybe it's not totally necessary, but it is serving a purpose, or it's like barely necessary, but I guess technically sort of like, you know, like a spectrum in there. And I think this more leans towards the end of the spectrum that is, this is serving a purpose. And so therefore, like, while it can be a bit gratuitous, and that's where I would say maybe to this degree is not fully necessary, it still it's not for no reason. And so that for me, I don't want to use the word justifies, but that's what makes the difference for me. So I feel like the effect that it's having on you isn't just for the sake of it, like it's part of the point that it's trying to make, or the story that it's trying to tell and the impression it's leaving with you with is very intentional. So I enjoyed this and I would recommend it, but again with a bunch of caveats. Oh, my camera's about to overheat. Okay, we're gonna keep going and hope for the best. The next book I read for a patron vlog was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is in fact the sequel to Fourth Wing, and I guess I'll say it now. Very recently, I also read Onyx Storm for a patron vlog, and I think I will at some point do a video for like public consumption about this series, because I ultimately ended up having kind of a lot to say in those vlogs. The last installment, Onyx Storm, I had very little to say about it. I was like, this is so boring. That's its worst crime. But Iron Flame in particular, I would say I had a lot to say about it. I was very angry about a lot of things in this book. So yeah, I'm kind of, the reason like I did these for patrons. I don't really like reading books on purpose to hate them for like my main channel. It's not a thing that I like to do. Cause like I picked these up at no point thinking this would be my favorite. I was like, if I like them, great. But like I'm picking this up knowing it's going to be kind of fun for my patrons to watch me read something that I don't like. But I don't really like doing that as like a main channel thing. But I have a lot to say about this one in particular that I do kind of want to say outside of just a patron vlog. So kind of still 50-50 on if I'm going to do it. I don't know. Let me know. But anyway, this happened. I read it and I also read Onyx Storm. So that's two more down. And then Mara and I are reading, we can do all those together too. She read the first Law trilogy last year. So now we're working our way through the standalones. And also, I'll do that now, we're tandem reading the first Law standalones and the Tiffany Aching series by Terry Pratchett. So we read Best Served Cold, and then the following month we read The Weak Free Men, and then we read The Heroes, and then we read Hatful of Sky, and so on and so forth. So right now we skipped Red Country. We're going to read that next month. Like we had a gap month in there. But so far we've read Best Served Cold and The Heroes. So for me, like the sixth time, whatever for those. And then I never read before the Tiffany Aching book. So we're through 3 of those. So we read We Free Men, Hatful of Sky, and I just now very like last week finished Wintersmith. And the first book she and I really didn't like very much. We were like, should we even read this series? And then both of us had all of the books already. So we were like, well, I mean, let's read a little more, see how this goes, give it the college try. And we liked Hatful of Sky a lot more. I really liked Hatful of Sky. And Wintersmith, not as much as Hatful of Sky, but I liked it certainly better than the first one. And we're going to finish the series. It's Pratchett, so it's charming and quirky and whimsical. The protagonist really grows on me, especially in the second one. And the third one, Wintersmith, I was just telling Mara, it was kind of like Bear and the Nightingale as told by Terry Pratchett. So June seems like the absolute most inappropriate time to be reading that. But that being said, I still had a good time reading it, and I'm having a good time reading those books. So yeah, looking forward to finishing. And then in July, she and I are gonna get back to First Law and read Red Country. I was like, well, what's better the month of 4th of July than to read Abercrombie's dark take on a Western? So that's what we're gonna do. Moving right along. Oh, we can do all these together too. I pissed off the entire world by doing a vlog reading The Hunger Games for the first time. Didn't really like it. First book I liked the best, and it went steadily downhill after that. People are really, really mad at me for disliking Katniss, but I said what I said. I read all your comments because I read all of my comments. I don't reply to them all, but I read all my comments. So if you were yelling at me about this, I read your comment. Even if it was like paragraphs and paragraphs, I read it. And I just still stand by what I said. There is nothing in my video that I would take back. Sorry, not sorry. Next, oh, another book I hate. This was a patron buddy read. So another red book, Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. Oh boy, I despised this. I really, really hated this. I felt about this kind of similarly to how I felt about A Long Way to a Small Hungry Planet. Although it doesn't do like the twee thing that one does, which is really aggravating. But it was another book where like, it seems to be so obsessed with its own concept, it hasn't thought through the implications and consequences of the concept that it has pitched, and is actually, while trying to make a point, is actually simultaneously making being really offensive, weirdly. Not that I'm personally offended, but I was like, do you even like realize what you're doing with this? Like, no. Like, are you kidding me? No. And this won a bunch of awards, which is deeply upsetting to me. So yeah, I yelled at my patrons about this for a while, and hopefully they agreed with me. Otherwise, that was miserable for them. So next, okay, covered that. Oh, The Children of Huron. My patrons chose this for me to vlog for them, and I really liked this. This is grimdark, which I was not expecting. And there are things about it too that I was like because I know J.R.R. Tolkien is not just Catholic, but like super Catholic. And there's things about this where I was like, are you sure Tolkien wrote this? Especially with the whole Catholic thing. But yeah, I really loved this. This is, I mean, it's very tragic. I think this video is going up after my Revenge of the Sith video. And if not, well, there you go. There's a Revenge of the Sith video coming. I love tragedy. That's pretty much like my favorite. So the fact that this is so tragic and so dark, I love it. I love it. I get why they picked it for me. Sadly, maybe not sadly, sadly, the thing that it reminded me most of, I say sadly because of circumstances, is a book that I really, really love called The Truth is a Cave in the Black Mountains by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman's a piece of shit, but his work doesn't stop being good because he's bad. So I love The Truth is a Cave in the Black Mountains. And not, like, this is a very different story, but some of the imagery and some of the vibes and some of the specific scenes, that's what it most was evoking to me. And again, that's like, it's a positive in that I love that story, negative in terms of that I'm reminded that Neil Gaiman exists, but you know, life is a mixed bag. So anyway, I love this and I would recommend it, but be warned, it is not happy. Oh, I don't want to go get it because my camera's going to overheat, but I have an ARC, physical ARC, so I feel like I should go get it, of A Far Better Thing by H.G. Perry, which I think is out now. So sorry, I read this months ago. H.G. Perry is the author of The Declaration of the Rights of Magicians and the sequel, The Radical Act of Free Magic, two of my all-time favorite books of all time ever. Also the author of The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep, very good. I did not like the newer book of hers I read, The Magician's Daughter, I think, didn't like that. But A Far Better Thing is H.G. Perry's retelling of The Tale of Two Cities. And we're back, baby. We are back at Declaration of the Rights of Magicians, H.G. Perry. I loved this so very much, and I wept, and 5 out of 5 stars, favorite of the year material. Read it, order it. It's so, so, so good. And even if you thought Declaration of the Rights of Magicians was not really for you because it's too dry, you're wrong, but it's fine. This is not as dry as that, because it's The Tale of Two Cities with Fae. So, like, we're not doing, like, debating in Parliament legislation about magic. It's The Tale of Two Cities with changelings. It's so good. This is how you do retellings. Oh, chef's kiss. Love it, love it, love it. No notes. Just go read it. Then my patrons and I read together as, like, our book of the month. We read Huckleberry Finn and James together because we kind of wanted to talk about them together. If you don't know, James it's pretty famous. It just came out end of last year or beginning of this year. And it is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but from the perspective of Jim, hence the name James. And we had pretty mixed feelings. I think James has won a bunch of awards, and it's understandable why, because there's things about James that are really brilliant. But there was also things about it we kind of were talking about, the sort of the way it's handicapped by being married to being a retelling of Huckleberry Finn and not a book in its own right, that ends up kind of hurting it and taking away from some of the charm of the original while not helping the new one. So yeah, there's aspects of it that I was like, well, this is so genius and so brilliant. But there's other things about it where I was like, that I really don't like that. Definitely worth a read, and certainly interesting to read them side by side. And if you've never read Huckleberry Finn, I would also recommend. I think it for sure stands the test of time. I'd read it before, but it had been a long time. So if you haven't read Huckleberry Finn, read Huckleberry Finn. Next, ooh, I pissed my patrons off with this. Language of the Night by Ursula Le Guin. I really did not like this. Ursula Le Guin and I do not see eye to eye. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Next, I read Red Rabbit for Blades and Bodice Rippers. The live show for that was on Amanda's channel. This is a horror western type thing. I don't really like westerns. So for it being a western, liked it well enough. But I would not have chosen to read it because it's a western. So that's all I have to say about that. And then Game of Thrones. My patrons and I are reading Game of Thrones together. Rereading for most of us. I think for a couple of us, it's a first time reading. But I think everyone who's reading it together with us has at least seen the show. So I don't think we have anyone that truly doesn't know what's going to happen. It's been a great time. We are currently reading Storm of Swords. So that's where we are through. And Bookborn is going to join us for Feast for Crows. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah, it's been a great time rereading them. Last time I read them was with Jimmy and Alex, which was it's like 3 years ago now? Yeah, they're really good books. Every time I'm like, yeah, there's a reason these are so well known and famous. And it has been fun for the couple of people that have never read them before to kind of, just like with Lord of the Rings, to kind of read it with people who haven't before, because that's, at this point, they're so well known, is kind of unique to hear fresh first-time thoughts. So yeah, we've been having a blast, and our chats have been like 3 hours each time, which normally that happens because we go off topic, but with Gene Wolfe and now with George R. R. Martin, we're on topic for the whole 3 hours. So they're long books. So there is that. Talked about that. Oh, I read Death at the Sanatorium by Ragnar Jonasson, which is a mystery, and I forgot I read it. But I did like it. It wasn't bad, but it's just kind of like, it's just a detective story. I'd never read this author before. I would read him again. It was a pretty good mystery, kept me interested. I was satisfied by the conclusion. It didn't wow me. I forgot I read it. But yeah, if you are interested in it, it wasn't by no means bad. It was, in fact, pretty good. Yep, that's really all I have to say about it. Oh, next is Allswell by Mona Awad, which is again, the next two are part of my priorities vlog. So Allswell and Fairy Tale by Stephen King. So I'm not going to say what I think about those. You'll have to wait for the vlog, sorry. Then Onyx Storm, which I talked about. Ride by Ali Hazelwood. Yes, that book. I was watching someone's reading vlog and they were talking about it and really, really gushing about it. And I'd obviously heard of this book. For some reason, that vlog really got me curious. And I was like, let's read it. Let's see. So I got it like from my library on Kindle, and I flew through it in like a day or two. It's a quick, easy read. That was my first Ali Hazelwood, and I would read another Ali Hazelwood book. Like, not a new favorite author or anything, but the humor worked for me, which is kind of the make or break with a lot of these. This is I was warned about the speculative spice that occurs in these type of books, and I didn't really find it that shocking. I mean, I was prepared for it, so I wasn't surprised. But I also, like, when I got to that, I was like, okay, whatever. The main thing was, yeah, that I found the humor was pretty good. There's a little girl in it that's, like, really funny and charming. The world building in it was, like, I mean, if this was, like, a serious fantasy book, I'd be like, but for, like, this type of a book, I was like, that's, like, decently interesting as a way to handle, like, vampires and werewolves or whatever. It's pretty good. So, yeah. It was a fun time. It was, again, sort of like the equivalent of, again, watching like a CW show or something that I don't do because, oh, this is cinema, but I'm like, entertaining, good humor, some good banter, some fun moments. Yeah, it was fine. Oh, I read with my patrons The City and the City by China Miéville. And China Miéville remains one of my new favorite authors. I'm probably going to do a video at some point on China Miéville. This, I think, is 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, genius and brilliant. And I also think that it's 0 out of 10, stupid. And I think both things simultaneously. I am Schrodinger's book reviewer, if you will. And being of two minds simultaneously is very appropriate for this book if you've read it, because of the concept of it. The City and the City, I don't really want to say too much about it because it would spoil it, but I don't really know why it's a spoil. Because, like, basically I'm going off of how China Miéville himself describes this. He doesn't actually explain this when he talks about it. He acts like this is like a secret that you need to find out for yourself when you read it. So I will respect that, I guess. But this is speculative only in as much as this does not exist. Like, this place doesn't exist. This, like, setup doesn't exist. But it's not magical. It's not like science fiction. It's just that it's speculative, like, because these cities that are described here and the way that they neighbor each other does not exist. These are not real places. But otherwise, it's basically a detective procedural, like a noir kind of story. And basically, I think it's brilliant and stupid at the same time, because the thing he has set up here, it enables some really, really excellent and fascinating conversation to be had about sort of sociological, political, anthropological issues. And China Miéville is a very kind of anthropological author, which is why he is, you know, Chef's Kiss, new favorite of mine, obviously no explanation needed. And so that part of it, like what this premise has enabled him to do, is what's 11 out of 10. I love it. It's genius. But if I'm looking at it purely as like, does this world building work, like structurally? It does not. 0 out of 10. The part of my brain that needs this to like make physical, logical sense, because it's not treated as a metaphor. It's made much too literal in this for me to be like, well, it's a metaphor. No, it's not a metaphor. Is so dumb. It does not work for me whatsoever. And so I'm of two minds about it the entire time, where I'm like, I know what you're trying to do with this. And the thing you're trying to do, and I guess succeeding in doing, because we are able to have the conversation that you want us to be having, is so good. But how you got there, like what you set up here to make that happen, no. You've lost me. So I would recommend reading it. It's not very long. It's thought-provoking, but yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel. Also, I've been watching the adaptation with my mom. I'm only halfway through. And I like the book better than the adaptation, but that's mainly because the book has a sort of sardonic tone. It has a very kind of like Soviet era feel to it. And the main character, what's his name? Something Borlu. Theodore Borlu. He is kind of a more of your average kind of like detective who's like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, but mostly just kind of like, that's my job and I'm curious to unravel a mystery. But they make him this like really melodramatic character in the show and invent this like tragic backstory for him that makes him kind of unhinged for no reason. And I'm like, that's not the vibe. I don't like that. I miss his kind of like sardonic tone that you get in here. So I do like the book better. Well, I haven't finished the adaptation. Maybe my mind will be changed in the other half. I don't know. After that is the books that Bookborn chose for me. And now my camera's probably gonna die, right? So again, if you wanna know what I think about these books, you're gonna have to check out the live show on her channel, where we will be discussing the 4 books that she chose for me to read, which are The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey, Windhaven by George R. R. Martin and Lisa Tuttle, Radium Girls by Kate Moore, this is the feminine rage pick, and Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. Risky choice. So yeah, looking forward to chatting about those. And then, mainly to get to 50, I read some short books. Oh wait, no, yeah, no, I talked about Winter. Then I also read The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw, and I quite liked it. It's very short, obviously, and it's very dark, but it's dark in a way that really works for me. And I think it doesn't overstay its welcome. I don't think this should be any longer than it is. It's exactly as long as it needs to be. The ending, I would have given this 5 stars, but I didn't really like the ending. I think it should have ended, the ending that happens in the epilogue, I should say. The way that it ends before the epilogue, I'm like at 4.5. The epilogue brings it down to a 4. Or did I give it 4? I think I gave it 4. The epilogue, I don't know. It's not really happy. Happy is going too far. But I would have preferred it to end kind of darkly and decently conclusively as it did. Adding on the epilogue, I was like, I didn't need that. I don't think it really adds anything. I don't know. It also kind of leaves it open to like, I wonder if there's a sequel or going to be a sequel, or that was the thought with that. I could see how there could be an interesting story with that, but as it is right now, if there isn't anything further to come, adding that on took more away than it gave, in my opinion. But otherwise, like, I would certainly read more from this author, and I did find it's very dark, so I would warn you. It's kind of graphic as well. But it's in that like folkloric, like, if you like Brahm, I think you would really like The Salt Grows Heavy. And then I read Thornedge by T. Kingfisher. And this is the retelling of Sleeping Beauty. And I'm kind of of 2 minds about this. So it's not really a dual timeline because it's too short for that. But it does take place, there's the present day, and then we're kind of caught up on how we got there, which is more of the Sleeping Beauty story. So the part of it that's the past, that's the story of the Sleeping Beauty retelling, I really, really liked that. The part that's in the present day, and there's kind of a romance with that, I didn't like it. It was boring and kind of cringy, and I did not find it compelling, and it was kind of hokey. I feel like I did not find the characters compelling whatsoever in the present timeline. I think just the way that it was as the Sleeping Beauty, like, past timeline, like how we got there, which is basically the events of the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale, and how those are being retold and recontextualized, that part, really, really liked that, really into that. Thought that was so clever. Present day, which is probably the majority of the book, but in like a 60-40 kind of way, no, not my cup of tea. So anyway, I like T. Kingfisher. It's hit and miss, the T. Kingfisher, so like I will continue to try reading T. Kingfisher books because many have been hits with me, many are misses. This is sort of in the middle. And those are the 50 books that I've read so far this year. Wow, we got through that efficiently, I think. And yeah, I set my reading goal to 100. We're halfway there. I don't know if I'll do a wrap up before the end of the year, but if not, well then I'll see you for the next 50 at the end of the year. Bye!